In a sport where the path to greatness is mapped out from childhood, where scouts spot wonder kids before they've even hit puberty, Ian Wright defied the norm. He didn't play top-flight football until he was 21. He was earning £50 a week as a plasterer. His first professional contract? Signed for a measly £100. And yet, against every odd, he became one of the most feared strikers in English football history. This is the story of Ian Wright, the late bloomer who didn't just make it. He defined it. Welcome to the story of the most unlikely Premier League legend, and welcome to Perspective Football. Ian Wright was born on November 3rd, 1963 in Woolwich, South London, the youngest of 3 sons. His biological father abandoned the family when Wright was just 18 months old. His stepfather, instead of offering stability, was violent and emotionally abusive. Home wasn't safe. School wasn't better. Teachers labelled him as a problem, a disruption, a lost cause. But football was everything. Wright played endlessly in local parks, training himself with whatever tools he had: a tennis ball, a wall, and sheer determination. Driven by a need to prove himself, he worked tirelessly on every part of his game. Left foot, right foot, first touch, heading, finishing. If someone said he couldn't do something, he'd return the next day, having mastered it. Despite his raw talent, Wright was rejected by every professional club he approached. There were no scouts, no trials, no interest. By his late teens, he was working odd jobs: a plasterer by day, a Sunday league footballer by weekend, and a young father struggling to support his family. After a short stint in prison for unpaid fines, Wright hit rock bottom. Defeated and exhausted, he made a quiet decision. He was done. After more than a decade of chasing a dream that never wanted him back, he was ready to give it up. No more trials, no more rejection. He would put his head down, work as a labourer, and move on. So when Crystal Palace came knocking, Wright said no. He didn't want to go through the humiliation again, but a close friend urged him to try, just one more time. Reluctantly, he agreed. And with that single decision, everything changed. Ian Wright had no idea he was about to write one of English football's most unforgettable stories. In 1985, at 21 years old, Ian Wright signed his first professional football contract, £100 a week with Crystal Palace. He wasn't a young prodigy. He wasn't a product of any academy. He was a working-class father with no experience in the professional game and nothing but raw hunger in his boots. Wright arrived at Selhurst Park with something most players didn't have: perspective. This wasn't a game to him, it was survival. Every training session, every touch, every sprint was done with the intensity of someone who knew what it meant to go without, and he hit the ground running. In his first season, Wright scored 9 goals in just 15 starts. He was unpredictable, relentless, and fearless, the kind of striker defenders hated and fans adored. But it was the 1990 FA Cup final that turned him into a national name. Coming back from a broken leg, Wright came off the bench against Manchester United and scored twice, nearly leading Palace to glory. They lost the replay, but Wright's bravery stole the headlines. By the time he left, Wright had scored 117 goals in 277 games, a post-war club record. It was time for the next level. In September 1991, Arsenal signed Ian Wright for £2.5 million, a club record at the time. He was 28, a late bloomer by any standard. But Arsenal knew what they were getting: a proven goal-scorer, a man with nothing to lose, and everything still to prove. Wright announced himself instantly. On his debut in the League Cup against Leicester City, he scored a hat-trick. In his league debut, days later, another goal. By the end of the season, 31 goals in all competitions. This wasn't a player easing into the top level. This was a man detonating on it. He didn't care about the occasion or the opponent. He played every game like it was personal, like someone was still telling him he didn't belong. And on the pitch, he made them eat their words. Wright wasn't your typical striker. His energy was unmatched, his confidence contagious. His celebrations were wild and unfiltered. Fans adored him because he played with joy, but also because he played with pain. You could see it in how hard he ran, how fiercely he fought. He wore every ounce of his past on his sleeve. Wright was Arsenal's top scorer for 6 consecutive seasons. He scored in North London derbies, in cup ties, in crucial league games. When Arsenal needed someone to make something happen, it was Wright who stepped up. But what made him a cult hero at Highbury wasn't just what he did, it was how he was. He was relatable. A street footballer in a world of polished pros. The guy who would yell at the ref one second and hug a ball boy the next. He was cheeky, fiery, unpredictable. And he brought Arsenal fans to life in a way no one else did. And then, just as some were beginning to wonder if age might catch up with him, everything changed again when Arsène Wenger arrived in 1996. At 33, Wright could have been seen as surplus to requirements. Wenger was building a new kind of Arsenal, technically gifted, continentally influenced, disciplined and fluid. But Wright wasn't finished yet. Under Wenger's management, his game evolved. Rather than just scoring goals, he linked play, pressed with intelligence, and adapted to a faster, more modern system. And the goals kept coming. In September 1997, Wright etched his name permanently into Arsenal's history books. He scored his 179th goal, breaking Cliff Bastin's all-time scoring record. Ever the showman, he pulled up his shirt mid-celebration to reveal the message, "Just done it." A celebration that instantly became iconic. He would go on to finish with 185 goals in 288 games, setting a new club record that stood until Thierry Henry arrived years later. But Wright was more than stats. He was the emotional heartbeat of the club. When he laughed, fans laughed. When he cried, fans cried with him. In 1997 to 98, despite injuries limiting his appearances late in the campaign, Wright helped Arsenal win the Premier League and FA Cup double, his first major trophies with the club. It was a perfect way to bow out. He'd carried the badge, lit up the stadium and passed the torch to the next generation. When Ian Wright hung up his boots in 2000, he didn't fade into the background. He didn't quietly retire or slip into occasional punditry. Instead, he transformed himself from a Premier League icon to one of the most powerful and beloved voices in British football culture. What made Wright stand out in his playing days wasn't just his talent. It was his honesty, his passion, his fire. And in retirement, that never left him. He became a staple on TV screens across the country, from Match of the Day to ITV, BBC, and countless radio shows. But unlike many former players who speak in clichés or keep it safe, Wright spoke from the soul. He didn't try to sound like a media professional. Rather, he sounded like himself, and that made him magnetic. He brought humour, energy, and joy to every broadcast, but more importantly, he brought the truth. Wright has used his platform to talk about issues far beyond the pitch, often with a kind of vulnerability rarely seen from public figures, especially male athletes. He's opened up about his traumatic childhood, the abuse he suffered, and the mental toll of poverty and rejection. In interviews and documentaries, he's spoken candidly about how his upbringing shaped his worldview, his emotions, and his relationships. In 2020, he revealed how he still battles with insecurity and unhealed wounds from those early years. "I've had to learn how to forgive," he once said, "not just others, but myself too." But Wright hasn't just reflected on his past. He's acted in the present. He's become one of the UK's most outspoken voices on racism in football, calling out injustice, holding institutions accountable, and standing in solidarity with players, young and old. When Marcus Rashford, Jadon Sancho, and Bukayo Saka received racial abuse after the Euro 2020 final, Wright spoke on national TV with tears in his eyes. Because he knew what it felt like to carry a nation's pain on your back, because he'd lived it. Wright's also become a mentor to young players, not just at Arsenal, but across English football. Bukayo Saka has spoken about how Wright regularly checks in on him. Race Nelson has said Wright was one of the few legends who made the academy kids feel seen. He's also a father figure to many off the pitch. His son, Sean Wright Phillips, followed in his footsteps and became an England international, and Wright has spoken with immense pride about being a dad who broke the cycle, who gave his children the love and presence he never had growing up. But beyond the studio, beyond the fatherhood, and even beyond the punditry, Ian Wright has become a cultural icon. He's appeared in documentaries, hosted talk shows, written children's books, and earned recognition not just as a former footballer, but as a voice for working-class Britain, a voice for black excellence, a voice for resilience. In 2022, he was awarded an MBE, Member of the Order of the British Empire, for his services to football and charity. But ask anyone who's followed his career. His true honours come from the lives he's touched, the kids he's inspired, and the barriers he's helped break down. Because Ian Wright didn't just become a Premier League legend. He became a role model for everyone to see. In all honesty, Ian Wright wasn't supposed to make it. No youth system, no coaching, no early breakthrough. Just a kid from South London with a ball, a wall and a fire that wouldn't go out. Faced rejection for 11 years. Signed his first contract for just £100 a week. Yet, against all odds, Ian Wright rose to become a true Premier League legend. If you enjoyed this video, Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more incredible football stories. Let us know in the comments what you think about Ian Wright's remarkable journey from rejection to greatness. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.